Support for this program provided by
Hello fellow chopperoos, Chad here, and this is it, the video that's been leading up to the ultimate workbench. Now Dennis Laney has been explaining to us the different benches that he's used and why this one is superior to all others. Now I know what you're thinking. When you see it, you're going to be like, Chad, that's not all that unique. I've seen a bench like that before. True, but Dennis is going to say why this bench is better than the others, and he's made some construction modifications that others in the past have not done. So let's pick up right where we left off.
Okay, well this is, as you said, the ultimate workbench, but I'm reluctant to say it's an ultimate for everybody because it's probably not. But it's a result of a lot of years of working on other workbenches. My biggest concern is that you're always looking for additional width. So I decided that I would build something that was going to give me adequate width, and all the work holding or different types of work holding that I've gotten used to over the years. So again, the first thing was I built a bench that I could sit on and I could work on using my body weight. It's 35 inches high. I'm 6'2". I think most people would find that 34 inches is a little bit more accommodating for the average woodworker. This bench is all built out of lumber that I had on hand. I take that back. The exception of the top, I had to get out and buy some yellow pine 2x8 or 2x12s for the top. But the bench is quite heavy. You'll notice that the legs are splayed to give it more stability laterally when you're planing. Now that said, if you're having to put that much force on your plane to loosen up your workbench, you need to take a sharpening class. It should never require that much effort. But again, if the position is or the height is at the right height to your physical height, you're going to find that your body weight really takes care of most of the effort that you require. This bench has got a number of unique vices. Not unique, but you don't see them every day. My tail vise is I believe it's an old Shelton, and it cranks back and forth. There's a nice little retractable dog right here. And you can see that both of the tops, and I'll get into that in just a minute, but all of the tops are drilled with a more than adequate number of dog holes or hold-fast holes. I went to the double tops because I did want a center tool area, which I think you can see pretty readily there. And also, I wanted the use of aprons for holdfasts. The problem with a lot of the benches that you see today, and I guess the most common one is what we refer to as a Nicholson bench, is that when you incorporate aprons into a top, 9 times out of 10, the aprons and the top will move at different rates, whether it's under the workforce or whether it's under seasonal change. So what I've done with these is, in both of these tops, there's a long groove, and there's a rebated tenon that's cut into the top of the aprons, which literally places this, or keeps this face of the apron and the face of the top slab aligned. And then what I did was I lagged there's 2 lags holding this top on. There's a tight lag at this position and a loose lag or a less tight lag in the back on a big fender washer that allows these 2 tops to float or expand and contract to the middle. And if you look at and maybe Chad can get a shot of this later, the tool tray just lays here and the tops literally float back and forth over the tool tray. This is real important because, I'll get around to that side, you want these surfaces to be in alignment between the aprons and the top slab. Again, what this little end vise does for me is it allows me to do planing from the end. And as I said, I also do a lot of carving. So if I want to hold a piece for carving, I have the ability to just come in here and I can set a dog down in this area. Hopefully this works. Now I've got something very secure, and I can do all my carving right here when I'm carving in the flat. This is also a wonderful device if I want to come in here and I want to do some surface planing or face planing. I've got the entire length of that slab that I can work from. And again, the great bulk of my work is done with hand tools. I do have a few power tools that are here that everybody has in their shop for the most part, especially as you get older. But about 80 to 85% of all my work is done with hand tools. So work holding really becomes a critical thing for me. At this end of the vise, of the bench, I have another pattern maker's vise. This is a 1908 Shelton Vise that was given to me by a good friend of ours, Scott Midgley. And it's just an absolutely wonderful vise. The replica Emmert's is a good vise, but this vise, I'm guessing that it weighs about 160 pounds all total. That was another reason that I went to a very, very heavy workbench, was to hold this particular vise. But it's amazingly accurately machined. It holds work, and it does everything that the Emmert's does. It tapers, it tilts, it swivels. It's just a marvelous piece of work holding that you'll likely never see anymore with the demise of the pattern maker's trade. There just really is no reason. This vise held work that someone was doing by hand with hand tools, which is now being done with three-dimensional printers. But again, it's a beautiful vise. And you see the smoothness. It retracts and advances just with tremendous smoothness and precision. What I've got at this end is a carving vise. Some retailers will now refer to this as a pattern maker's vise. That said, it truly is not a pattern maker's vise. The jaws do swivel, but really most people would call this a gunstock vise. And gun makers would use this for carving work. You can see what I've got is I've got a tapered piece here. The jaws are padded with a urethane sheet, so it creates a soft jaw. So I have something like this that's literally in its finished condition that I don't want to mar. I can hold this, even tapered pieces, very irregular pieces. I can actually hold it down on the details, and the jaws will hold that in place. So, in fact, I just cut these tenons using this vise. The other thing it's very good for is, and ergo the name Gunstock carving vise. This is a Spanish foot that was carved using this vise. And what's very nice about this is I can position this surface as I want it. This vise will swing 90 degrees. It'll literally swing 360 degrees, but to work over the ends, it'll swing 90. But I'm working at my elbow height. And when you're carving or filing, you would like to be at your elbow height. So this vise gives me that ability to really control my carving tools and to position different shaped work pieces with real ease. This side of the bench is really the hardcore of planing and joining. First off, I have an old early 1900s Shelton quick release vise, which is on a rack. I simply pull it out, and drop the handle, and it's locked in place. You'll see that again, we were talking about the apron. What this apron allows me to do is use holdfasts to position, and in this case what I do is if I were going to cut a lot of similar pieces and join them, what I would simply do is set a ledger with my holdfasts. Now I can run a board here, and I'd probably want to set them a little bit lower than this. But if I have a lot of these to shoot, now I'm held down completely. I'm perfectly at right angles to the face of the bench, the top, and I'm held absolutely securely for shooting these joints. This is just an incredible setup. It's simple, but it's incredibly effective. The other thing is I do a lot of hand dovetail work, and over the years a lot of people have touted the Moxon vise. And the Moxon vise is a wonderful bench attachment or a bench accessory. But there are times if you're doing a big blanket chest or something, you're going to be over width of most Moxon vises. So what I can do with this is, and I would put a protective board up here, but I can come in here, and now if I'm going to be cutting dovetails, I can saw any height that I want to saw, and I'm perfectly secure up against that face. If I can, virtually I could have something that would be as long as the distance between my elbow and my arm, which is about 42 inches. I could get by even at 48. So that gives you a lot of latitude as to what you can hold here. Now, if I did want to go with something on the order of a Moxon bench or a Moxon vise, I could simply mount that on top as they're normally mounted, or put it up to the face and hold it in place and be very, very secure. Again, I mentioned earlier about on one of the other, I think on the walnut bench, about connection methods. You can see that I've opted here to go to just a bolted connection. The stretchers are loose mortised into the legs. The top of the workbench is in compression. The bottom of the workbench is literally in tension because of the splay of the legs. So it's a very, very strong, stable work platform. If I do have any seasonal change, all I'd have to do is take a box end wrench and get in here and tighten it up. The work surface, the storage surface underneath is just is an absolute treasure to me. As you can see, my shop could use a little more organization. But I have a very large storage surface underneath the workbench. I can put planes down there if I'm using them. I can store other things in boxes underneath it. And all the boards in the storage area are just loose, again to accommodate seasonal movement. Very easy to clean. The ends of the storage area are open. And again, it's just something that I was really looking for, with some additional storage space. I got away from the notion of drawers because I do have the tool tray in the middle, which will accommodate all my marking and gauging tools. Right now you can see I've got some carving tools. It's just it's a real benefit. The idea of having the drawer in the middle, the tool tray in the middle, is I still have two parallel surfaces that are in plane that I can work across, even with tools laying in the middle of the tray. The ends of the frame itself, the leg assembly, is all draw pinned together. and the only bolts that are holding it are the stretcher bolts, and of course the lags that hold the top in place. Again, the beauty of this is if I want to take a large workpiece, I can take something like this Windsor chair frame that's been sitting here for quite some time, but I can set it across, and I've got a lot of space to do that in. On any of the other benches, this would literally be too wide to set on the workbench. I'd be back in the tool tray. Beauty of this is if I see any rock, well, I did pretty good on that, see? But I could literally, if I want to trim a fourth leg to even something out, all I've got to do is pull this off, scribe it, and I can accomplish that much easier than I used to. But all in all, I'd say for my purposes, this really does represent everything that my experience has told me that is what I wanted in a workbench. And again, the fact that I can get all the way around the workbench is a huge benefit. Now that said, it's nice to have the other workbenches that I can reach right back to if I want to put something on them or a piece when it's finished, I can do that. And I'm close enough to my lathe that if I'm doing multiple turnings on the lathe, I can use this the surfaces on this bench as well for storage, or not for storage, but for getting things in line to go to work on the lathe. So I'm very pleased with it, and it'll be the last workbench that I ever build, maybe.
And there you are, the workbench that Dennis says there is no need for any others. Maybe. Well, if you're interested in that workbench, fear not, because I am actually going to be building a version of that. Now, Dennis's bench, if you notice, he had it bolted together, where I'm going to want mine to be able to knock down. So I'm going to use a little bit different joinery construction, but the majority of it, I'm going to stick to Dennis's layout there. So, in the upcoming weeks, you'll be able to see how the bench is built. You'll be able to get plans for it, and I'll be able to actually get some more work done in my shop. So until then, thanks for watching. Support our sponsors that make this show possible, and of course, keep on dancing.